Hey everyone, welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today on a topic that I think is so important for anyone learning English. How to build confidence when you speak.
Yeah, it's something that comes up all the time. I'm excited to really dig into it with you.
I think there are a lot of misconceptions about confidence. Like, some people think you have to be fearless or never make any mistakes.
Like you have to be the loudest one in the room.
Exactly.
But real confidence, I think, is so much deeper than that.
I agree.
Have you ever gotten a compliment and then kind of immediately brushed it off?
Oh my gosh, yeah, all the time. Why do we do that?
Well, it could be a sign of, struggling with self-acceptance, which is a huge part of confidence. Like when you can accept a compliment, you're saying, okay, I see my strengths.
Hmm.
You're also showing that you value the other person's opinion.
That's a really cool way to look at it. It's like you're actually rejecting a gift when you're doing that.
Exactly. Confident people can kind of receive those gifts.
Hmm.
And it also ties into another thing confident people do. They tend to make decisions without overthinking every single little thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Especially with language learning, if you're constantly second-guessing yourself, you're never going to make any progress.
absolutely. You need to trust your gut and take some risks. Like think about a baby learning to walk. They don't think about falling, they just go for it.
Right,
They
right.
get up and try again.
So it really is, like you said, deeper than just feeling good about yourself.
Totally.
It impacts the way you learn, the way you interact with other people.
And, it also affects how we set boundaries.
Oh, interesting.
So confident people, they're fine saying, what they need. They're okay saying no to things.
Well, that makes sense.
They're not pressured to say yes all the time.
Right. Or pretend they understand something when they don't.
Exactly. And it kind of goes back to being authentic.
So it's about being true to yourself.
Yes.
Okay, so we've talked about what confidence really is. But for those of us out there who are like, okay, I want to be more confident, especially when speaking English, what are some signs that we might be holding ourselves back?
That's a great question. I think one of the biggest ones is constantly worrying about what other people are thinking, especially in a language you're still learning.
Oh, yeah.
So imagine you're at a coffee shop and you want to order something in English.
Mm-hmm.
Are you picturing the barista, like, judging every word, every grammar mistake?
I think we've all been there. It
Well,
could be so scary to feel judged.
totally. And it might even lead you to do things like avoid eye contact
Oh, yeah.
or to speak super quietly so no one can really hear you.
Like you're trying to make yourself invisible.
Almost, right?
Yeah.
But those
But
physical things, they actually feed into the negative feeling.
it's like a vicious cycle. We feel bad, so we act like we feel bad, and then we feel even worse.
Exactly. And then sometimes we overthink every conversation we have. We replay it in our heads.
Ugh, the post-conversation analysis. I hate that.
Yeah, we dwell on everything we said, everything we should have said.
Pick it all apart.
And that can be so detrimental to your confidence. It's like
Mhm.
you're constantly looking for things you did wrong instead of like celebrating the things you did well.
Yeah, focusing on all the flaws.
Exactly.
So we have to try to stop those patterns.
Yeah, for sure.
But how do we actually start building confidence, especially when it comes to, like, actually speaking English?
Yeah.
It feels like such a huge task.
Well, one of the most powerful things you can do is something that might feel a little bit counterintuitive. You have to take action before you feel confident.
What do you mean by that?
A lot of times we wait to feel confident before we do something.
Yeah.
Like we say, once I'm confident enough, then I'll start speaking English.
Mm-hmm.
But that confidence, it rarely just magically appears.
Right?
It's actually through action that we build those feelings.
So you're saying, like, even if I don't feel confident, I should just start speaking, even if it feels weird.
Yes. Fake it till you make it, as they say.
Hmm.
Because the more you act as if you are confident, your brain will start to believe it.
Interesting.
And then as you see yourself handling those situations that used to make you nervous, that's when the real confidence starts to grow.
Okay, I like that idea of action being what builds the confidence. But where do you even start? Like, it feels like such a big jump.
Yeah, you don't have to go from 0 to 100 right away.
Right.
Start with small, manageable steps. Instead of like trying to have this long, complex conversation, maybe you just greet someone in English
Mm-hmm.
or you order your coffee in English.
Or leave a voicemail message in English.
Exactly. And those little wins, they start to build momentum.
Yeah, they snowball into something bigger.
Exactly. Each time you step outside of that comfort zone and you succeed, it proves to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought.
So it's not about being perfect, it's about making progress.
That's a really important point. Embracing progress over perfection That is key to building confidence that actually lasts. We need to stop aiming to be flawless and just focus on being better than we were yesterday.
I love that. So it's okay to make mistakes.
Of course,
Uh,
especially when you're learning something new.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. We need to look at mistakes as opportunities to learn instead of like these big, scary failures.
So not beat ourselves up every time we make a mistake.
Exactly. Every single native English speaker was once a beginner, too. They made all the same mistakes, they stumbled,
Right.
and they just kept learning. It's part of the process.
It makes me feel better knowing that even native speakers were once beginners.
For sure.
Okay, so we've talked about action, progress over perfection. What else can we do to build confidence?
Well, another thing that can be really powerful is paying attention to how we talk to ourselves. You know, that little voice inside our heads.
That inner critic.
Yeah, it can either be our best friend or our worst enemy.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think we're all guilty of that negative self-talk sometimes.
It's a very human thing to do,
Yeah.
but it's important to realize how damaging it can be. Like if you constantly tell yourself, I'm not good enough or I'll never be fluent, you're actually making it more likely that that will become true.
So how do we change those thoughts?
So, it's about becoming aware of the language you're using with yourself. For example, instead of saying, I can't speak English well, which is like a very absolute statement,
Yeah.
try saying, I'm learning and improving every day.
It's a very small change, but I feel like that would make a big difference.
Yeah,
It's still acknowledging where you're at,
exactly.
but you're acknowledging that you're improving.
Yes. And it's not just about changing the words, it's also about challenging the beliefs behind those words.
What do you mean? Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you make a mistake while speaking. You think, "Ugh, I'm so stupid, I'll never get this right."
Mm-hmm.
That thought, it's based on this idea that your intelligence is, like, fixed. And that mistakes are failures. But is that really true?
So you have to kind of stop and question that thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you could ask yourself, is it really true that I'm stupid? Or am I simply making a mistake, which is a natural part of learning?
Yeah.
And the more you practice this, the more you'll see those negative thoughts for what they really are.
They're just thoughts.
Just thoughts, not facts.
That's good. It's almost like you're building mental muscles.
You are. It's about consciously choosing to build your confidence rather than letting that doubt take over.
I like that.
So much of this is mental.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about how we talk to ourselves, but what about actually practicing speaking?
Right.
Like, are there specific techniques to help with that?
Definitely. One that I find really helpful is something called controlled exposure.
Controlled exposure, what's that?
So it's about intentionally putting yourself in situations that challenge you, but not so much that you feel completely overwhelmed.
Okay, so like not jumping into the deep end right away.
Exactly. Baby steps. So for someone who is nervous about speaking English, it could be as simple as like talking to yourself in English at home. Maybe you describe your day.
Or practice what you're going to say when you order at a restaurant.
Totally. Anything like that. It helps you get comfortable with the sounds of the language.
So it feels less intimidating?
Yeah. And then maybe you progress to like texting a friend in English.
Just short messages.
Exactly. Just little bits at a time.
You're building up a tolerance?
Exactly. And then eventually maybe you join a language exchange online or an English conversation group.
Those are good ideas.
Yeah.
So it's about like slowly increasing your exposure to English.
Yes.
In a way that feels safe.
In a way that feels safe. And as you start to see yourself handling these situations, your confidence naturally grows.
Awesome. This is all so helpful. I think a lot of people might not realize that confidence isn't just mental, it's also physical. Like our body language plays a role too, right?
It's such a two-way street. Our body language can reflect how we feel, but it can also influence how we feel.
Interesting. So even if we don't feel confident on the inside, we can act confident on the outside, and that can actually help us feel more confident.
Exactly. It's like you're tricking your brain. So think about someone who seems confident. How are they standing?
Probably standing tall, shoulders back, head up.
Right. And they're probably making eye contact. They're speaking in a clear, steady voice.
All those little things add up.
Yes. And they all convey confidence.
Okay, so what can we do to kind of, I guess, hack our body language to project more confidence?
Well, one easy thing is to focus on your posture.
Mm-hmm.
Stand up straight, shoulders back, head up. You'll immediately feel more confident.
Like you're taking up space.
Exactly. And then there's eye contact, which can be a tough one.
Yeah, it can.
But it's really important for connecting with people. It shows you're engaged in the conversation.
Right.
So try to find a comfortable level of eye contact.
Okay.
You don't have to stare intensely.
Right.
Just a friendly gaze.
And what about our voice? I know a lot of people, when they're nervous, they speak very softly.
Yeah, and that can come across as like hesitant or unsure. So try to project your voice.
So it's not just about speaking louder,
Yeah.
it's about speaking with, like intention.
Exactly.
Okay, this is all great. I'm starting to see that we actually have a lot of control over our confidence levels. It's not just something we're born with, it's something we can work on.
Absolutely. And another really cool tool is something called power poses.
Power poses. I've heard of those. What are they?
So these are specific postures that have actually been shown to increase feelings of confidence.
Wow. So you can trick your brain into feeling more confident just by changing your posture.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's wild.
Researchers have found that holding these poses, even for a few minutes, can lead to, like, hormonal changes.
Whoa. Do you have any examples of power poses? I want to try them out.
Yeah, for sure. One classic one is called the Wonder Woman pose.
Oh, I love that.
So stand with your feet hip width apart, hands on your hips, chest lifted, chin slightly raised.
I can already feel myself feeling more powerful.
Right?
Okay, power poses. I'm going to try that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about body language, action, mindset. What else can we do to feel more confident when we speak English?
Well, another thing to consider is who you surround yourself with.
The people in our lives.
Yeah, because they can have a huge impact on our confidence levels. Think about it. If you're constantly around people who are putting you down or criticizing you,
Yeah,
it's going to be really hard to feel good about yourself.
right. Especially when you're learning something new, you're already feeling kind of vulnerable.
Exactly. But if you surround yourself with people who are supportive and encouraging, people who believe in you,
Mm-hmm.
it makes a huge difference.
It's so true. We need those cheerleaders in our corner.
We do. And even if you haven't found that support system yet, remember, you can be your own cheerleader.
That's a good point.
You can practice self-compassion, celebrate your own wins.
Yeah, remind yourself of your strengths.
Exactly. You don't have to wait for validation from other people.
That's a good reminder.
You can give it to yourself.
So even with the best support system in the world, mistakes are going to happen. How do we embrace those mistakes without letting them, like, destroy our confidence?
One of the most powerful things you can do is learn to laugh at yourself. When you can laugh at your mistakes, you kind of take away their power.
It makes them less scary.
Exactly. It also makes you more approachable to other people. People are drawn to those who can laugh at themselves.
Yeah, it shows humility.
It does. So next time you make a mistake in English, try to see the humor in it and just keep going.
Okay, I like that. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Exactly. Have fun with it. It's all part of the learning process.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I'm already feeling more confident just talking about these strategies.
Me too. And remember, building confidence is a journey.
Yeah,
It's not a destination.
so we're going to keep talking about it.
We are.
I'm excited to dig into some more strategies and techniques after a quick break. We'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we were talking about all those really cool mindset shifts that can help you feel more confident when you speak English. But mindset is just one piece of the puzzle, right?
Mhm.
We also need some actual practical strategies to help us improve our speaking skills.
For sure. And one technique I really like, especially for building confidence in pronunciation, is something called shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, that sounds kind of mysterious. What is that exactly?
So basically, imagine you're listening to a recording of a native English speaker. This could be a podcast, a YouTube video, even just like a simple phrase. And as you're listening, you try to imitate their speech as closely as possible, almost like you're their shadow.
Oh, interesting.
So you're not just passively listening,
Wow.
you're actively trying to copy their sounds,
Mm.
like the rhythm, the intonation, everything.
Like you're mimicking them.
Yeah, exactly.
So that sounds like a great way to improve pronunciation.
Mhm.
But how does that actually help build confidence?
Well, think about it. When you feel more confident in your ability to pronounce words correctly, you're less likely to hesitate or stumble over your words when you're actually speaking.
Right, so you'll feel more fluent. Like
Exactly.
it'll just come out more naturally.
Exactly. And the best part about shadowing is you can do it anywhere, anytime. You could shadow while you're commuting, doing chores, even just relaxing at home.
Okay, I'm definitely going to try that out. Do you have any tips to make it more effective?
Yeah, I do. First, choose a recording that you enjoy listening to and that you can actually understand.
Okay.
It's okay to start with shorter pieces, like even just a sentence or two, and then
Yeah.
you can gradually work up to longer passages as you get more comfortable.
So again, it's that idea of starting small.
Exactly. Baby steps. And don't worry too much about being perfect right away. The goal isn't to become a clone of the speaker.
Right.
It's just to use their speech as a model to improve your own. Okay?
Yeah.
So just relax and have fun with it.
So it's more about the process.
Yes, exactly. Focus on the process of training your ear and your mouth to work together.
Got it.
And the more you do it, the more those sounds and patterns will just start to feel like second nature.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
What about hearing ourselves speak? I know that can be really intimidating for a lot of people, especially when you're still learning.
Oh, I totally get it. Listening to recordings of your own voice can be super cringy,
Yeah, it is.
especially in a language you're not totally comfortable with yet. But it's also an incredibly powerful tool to help you improve.
I can see how that would be useful.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people get really caught up in judging themselves, like focusing on all the mistakes.
I know, and it's hard not to. But try to remember that you're doing this for yourself. This isn't for anyone else to judge. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. You'll start to feel more comfortable with your own voice, and you can really use it as a tool for growth.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's about shifting your perspective from being your own worst critic to being like your own coach.
Exactly. So how can we actually use these recordings to help us improve and build that confidence?
Wow, I'm all ears.
One thing you can do is choose a short passage in English. Could be a paragraph from a book you're reading, anything like that. And record yourself reading it out loud. Then listen back to the recording. Pay attention to places where you might be, stumbling or hesitating or mispronouncing words.
Like you're your own pronunciation coach.
Yeah. You can listen more objectively and pinpoint exactly what needs work. You can even compare your recording to one by a native speaker and hear the differences.
Oh, that's a great idea. Where would I even find a recording of a native speaker saying the same thing?
Honestly, there are tons of resources out there. You could look on YouTube, you could use a language learning app or website, or even ask a friend who's a native English speaker to record it for you.
Oh, good idea. Okay, so once I've compared my recording to a native speaker, what's the next step?
So then really focus on the specific areas where your pronunciation is different. Maybe you're stressing the wrong syllable or your intonation is a bit off. And then practice those specific sounds and patterns until they feel more natural.
So you just keep practicing and refining, practicing and refining.
Exactly. It's a process of continuous improvement. And remember, progress takes time, so just be patient with yourself and celebrate all those little wins along the way.
Okay, I love that. So we talked about recording ourselves reading. Are there other things we can record that are helpful?
For sure. Another really helpful exercise is to record yourself having a conversation in English. You can do this with a language partner online or even just role play different scenarios by yourself.
Kind of like a dress rehearsal.
Yes, exactly. It allows you to practice speaking more spontaneously, thinking on your feet.
And it's in a less stressful environment.
Right. And then, just like before, you can listen back to the recording and pick out areas to focus on. Did you hesitate? Did you struggle to find the right words?
Were there grammar mistakes?
Exactly. It's like having your own personal language coach.
I love that. This is all so helpful. I'm feeling so much more motivated to take control of my own learning.
I'm glad to hear that.
But it's important to acknowledge that language learning is hard.
Mm.
And sometimes it's hard to stay motivated.
Yeah, motivation is key. And one of the best ways to stay motivated is to make it fun. It shouldn't feel like a chore.
It's like find ways to keep it interesting, right?
Yes, make it enjoyable. Luckily, there are so many ways to do that these days.
Like what? Give me some fun ways to learn English.
Okay, well, one of my personal favorites is watching movies and TV shows in English.
Oh, yeah. I love that. It's like you're learning without even realizing it.
Exactly. But I think a lot of people feel intimidated by that, especially if their level isn't that high yet.
It can feel overwhelming.
It can. So the key is to start small. Maybe you start by watching something simple like a children's cartoon and use subtitles in your native language. Then try watching the same cartoon with English subtitles. And eventually you might even be able to watch without subtitles. But again, no pressure. Just find what works for you and enjoy the process.
Baby steps. What about music? That's another fun one. Really?
Music is amazing for language learning.
Yeah?
You can listen to songs, try to sing along. It really helps you get a feel for the natural rhythm and intonation of the language.
And it's fun. Plus, you can look up the lyrics if you want to understand all the words.
Exactly. It's a really great way to pick up new vocabulary.
Okay, what about reading? A lot of people feel intimidated by that, too.
Reading is so important, but I get it. It can feel daunting. The key is to start small. Pick things that are at your level.
Yeah,
Maybe start with a children's book or a graphic novel, something with simple language and lots of pictures.
right. Something that you'll enjoy.
And there are a lot of resources out there that can help you find books that are just right for you. You can ask a librarian, a teacher, or even just look for graded readers online. Those are specifically designed for language learners.
Okay, so children's books, graphic novels, graded readers.
Mhm.
What about like all those apps and websites we were talking about before?
Oh, yeah, those are great too. So a lot of them have games and quizzes and interactive exercises that make learning feel more like playing. And they also often help you track your progress, which is really motivating.
It sounds like there are so many possibilities. It's almost overwhelming.
I know, right? So much to explore. But I think that's where goal setting comes in.
Goal setting.
When you set clear and specific goals, you give yourself a roadmap for success.
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful. But how do you actually set goals that are like challenging but also realistic?
That's a great question. One of the biggest mistakes people make is setting goals that are too vague. Like, I want to be fluent in English.
Yeah.
That's a huge goal.
It feels impossible almost.
Right. So instead, try something more specific. Like, I want to be able to hold a 5-minute conversation about my hobbies in English by the end of the month.
So it's measurable.
Yes. And you can break it down into smaller steps. So maybe you start by learning some key vocabulary related to your hobby. Then you practice talking about it with a friend or even just to yourself in the mirror.
Right.
And then finally, try having that conversation.
So break it down. What are some other examples of like more realistic goals?
You could aim to learn 10 new words each week or watch one English movie with subtitles.
Okay, yeah.
Spend 30 minutes each day practicing on a language exchange app. The key is to find what works for you.
So you can challenge yourself without feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly. And it's okay to adjust your goals as you go. You know, if something feels too easy or too hard, you can always change it. The important thing is to just have those goals so you have something to work towards.
Yep, to give you direction.
And remember, you should be celebrating all of those small wins along the way.
Right. Don't wait until you've like achieved some big milestone to feel good about your progress.
Exactly. Language learning is a journey, and it's important to enjoy every step.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about like external strategies, but I want to circle back to mindset for a minute. We talked about how important that is. What are some of the qualities of like a growth mindset that are helpful for language learners?
So a growth mindset is all about believing that your abilities aren't fixed, but that they can be developed through effort and learning.
So you're not just like stuck with whatever skills you have now.
Exactly. And people with a growth mindset, they embrace challenges. They see them as opportunities to learn and get better, and they see mistakes not as failures, but as feedback.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So when things get tough, they don't get discouraged. They keep pushing forward.
Exactly. They know that learning is a process, and they're willing to put in the work.
But I think a lot of us, myself included, tend to have more of a fixed mindset, especially when it comes to things like language learning.
Yeah, it's really common. And it can be hard to break out of that way of thinking.
Especially if you've had bad experiences in the past.
Right. But the good news is you can shift your mindset from fixed to growth. It just takes effort and practice.
How do we do that? How do we cultivate that growth mindset?
One of the most powerful ways is to become more aware of your self-talk. So pay attention to those negative thoughts that pop up when you make a mistake or when you're feeling challenged. And instead of just accepting those thoughts as the truth, try to question them.
Question them.
Yeah. Like, let's say you're practicing with a language partner and you mess up a word. You might think, oh, see, I'm no good at this. I'll never be fluent. That's a very fixed mindset thought.
Yeah.
So try to challenge that thought. Ask yourself, is it really true that this one mistake means I'll never be fluent?
Right.
Or is it just a sign that I'm still learning?
Okay.
And everyone makes mistakes. Even native speakers make mistakes.
That's true. So it's all about how you interpret those mistakes.
Exactly. The more you practice challenging those fixed mindset thoughts and replacing them with more growth-oriented ones, the easier it will become to see those challenges as opportunities for learning.
That's a much healthier way to look at it.
It is. It's all about shifting your perspective. And remember, learning a new language is a huge accomplishment. So be kind to yourself, celebrate your progress, and never give up.
I love that. It's so easy to focus on the negative, but we have to remember to celebrate the positive too. Is there anything we can do to remind ourselves of, like our strengths and our progress, even when we're feeling discouraged?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. One technique I really like is to create a confidence journal. It's basically just a notebook where you write down all your accomplishments, big and small. You can also write down positive feedback you get from other people.
So, kind of like a record of all the good stuff.
Exactly. It's a place you can go when you need a reminder of how far you've come. So maybe you had a great conversation in English with a stranger, or your teacher complimented you on something. Write it down. Those little wins might seem small, but they really do add up.
I like that. It's like building your own little cheering section.
Exactly. And you can also use this journal to write down affirmations, positive things you can tell yourself when you're feeling doubtful.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so confidence journal. What about getting encouragement from other people? We've talked about surrounding yourself with supportive people, but is there anything else we can do to, like, encourage that positive reinforcement?
Yeah, sometimes we just need to let people know that we appreciate their feedback and that it helps us stay motivated.
So it's okay to ask for it sometimes.
Yeah, it's totally fine. In fact, sometimes it's helpful to be more direct about what kind of feedback you're looking for.
Okay, but how do you do that without feeling like awkward or annoying?
So, for example, after you've given a presentation in English or had a conversation with a language partner, you could simply say something like, "How do you think I did? Is there anything I could improve on?" Or, "I'd really appreciate it if you could give me some feedback on my pronunciation or on my fluency," whatever it is you're working on.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's about being proactive.
Exactly. And remember, even if the feedback isn't all positive, try to view it as a gift. It's an opportunity to learn and grow.
To see yourself through someone else's eyes.
Yeah. And when you can do that, feedback becomes less scary and more valuable.
This is all so great. I'm starting to realize that confidence building isn't just this, like, one-time thing. It's an ongoing process.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination.
Okay, but before we move on, I'm curious about one more thing I saw mentioned in our research. The role of visualization.
Oh, yeah.
I know people use visualization for things like sports, but how does that work for language learning?
Visualization is a really powerful tool, and it can be used for pretty much anything.
Hmm.
It's based on the idea that our brains don't always know the difference between what's real and what we imagine.
Okay.
So when we vividly picture ourselves doing something successfully, like speaking English, we're basically creating a mental blueprint for success.
Okay, I can see how that might be helpful. But
Mhm.
can you give me a specific example of how I might use visualization for language learning?
Sure. So imagine you have a job interview coming up in English, and you're feeling nervous about it.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on those nervous feelings, you could spend a few minutes each day visualizing yourself confidently, walking into the interview room, greeting the interviewer, answering their questions clearly and calmly.
So you're not just like picturing it in your head, you're like really trying to feel it.
Yes, engage all your senses. The more vivid and detailed you can make it, the more powerful it will be.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and the more you practice, the more confident you'll feel when you actually have that interview.
It's like mental rehearsal.
It is. You're mentally preparing yourself for success.
Okay, I like that. Visualization. But what about those moments when we make mistakes?
Yeah.
Even when we visualize things going perfectly, we're still human.
Mm.
We're going to mess up sometimes. So how do we bounce back from those setbacks without letting them completely derail us?
That's such a good question. Because mistakes are inevitable. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how prepared you are, you're going to make them. And it's really all about how you respond to them. That's what makes the difference.
So what's the key to bouncing back?
The key is to view those mistakes as opportunities for learning and growth, not as failures.
Easier said than done sometimes.
I know. It's natural to feel disappointed when things don't go the way we want them to.
Yeah.
But instead of just stewing in those negative feelings, try to shift your focus to what you can learn from it.
So asking yourself, okay, what can I do better next time?
Exactly. Maybe you realize that you need to practice a certain sound more, or maybe you need to learn more vocabulary in a specific area. Whatever it is, try to embrace it. It's all part of getting better.
I love that. Turning your mistakes into learning opportunities.
Exactly. And when you can do that, you'll not only improve your English faster, you'll also build resilience and confidence that will help you in every area of your life.
This has been so inspiring. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on language learning. And I love how you keep emphasizing that confidence is not a destination, it's a journey.
It really is. There will be good days and bad days.
Ups and downs.
The important thing is to just keep going.
Yeah. Be patient, celebrate the small wins, and never give up.
Exactly. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'd love to touch on one more thing.
Okay. What's that?
Self-care. I know it might sound a little bit off topic,
Yeah.
but taking care of yourself physically and emotionally can actually have a huge impact on your confidence levels. Think about it. When you're feeling stressed and tired, it's so much harder to focus, and it's definitely harder to feel good about yourself.
That's so true. When I'm exhausted, I feel like I can't do anything right.
Yeah. So, what are some self-care practices that we can all do to feel more energized, focused, and confident on our English learning journey?
I'm ready to hear them.
One of the most basic but most important things is sleep.
Sleep.
Sleep. When we don't get enough sleep, our brain just doesn't work as well. It's
Yes.
harder to learn, it's harder to think clearly. So try to aim for 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep every night.
7 to 8 hours, that's a lot.
It is, but it makes a huge difference.
Okay, what else?
Another one is to eat healthy foods.
Okay, yeah.
What you eat really affects how you feel.
Yeah.
So ditch the junk food. Try to eat more fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Think of it as giving your brain the fuel it needs to learn and grow. And of course, don't forget to drink plenty of water.
Hmm.
Staying hydrated helps you think more clearly too.
So sleep, good food, lots of water.
Exactly. Those are the basics. And then, exercise is also really important.
Oh yeah, that's good for everything.
It is. When you exercise, your body releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects. It can also help reduce stress and anxiety, which are definitely not good for confidence.
So even just a little bit of exercise can make a difference.
Totally. Even a short walk can do wonders. The key is to find something you enjoy and that you can do regularly.
Yeah, it shouldn't feel like a chore.
Exactly. And finally, don't forget about relaxation and stress management. Things like meditation, deep breathing exercises, spending time in nature, all those things can do wonders for your mental and emotional health.
I think that's so important. People don't talk about it enough. When we're feeling calm and relaxed, we're just naturally going to feel more confident.
Exactly. It's all connected. Your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, it all plays a role in how confident you feel.
This is so interesting. I love how we're looking at confidence building as a holistic thing. It's not just about specific techniques, it's about taking care of yourself on every level.
Absolutely. It's about creating a lifestyle that supports your learning, your growth, and your overall well-being.
Okay, wow, we've covered a lot of ground. I feel like we need a break to digest all this information.
Sounds good. We'll be back in a few minutes to talk about even more ways to boost your confidence when speaking English.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about self-care and how taking care of ourselves can actually make us more confident English speakers. It's like you need a good foundation to build on.
Right. You can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of yourself first.
So true. Okay, I'm ready for more tips.
Yeah.
What else can we do to feel more confident when speaking English?
Well, one thing that often gets overlooked is the role of our environment. Like the actual physical spaces where we learn and practice can have a big impact on how we feel.
Really? I never thought about that.
Yeah, think about it. A time when you felt really comfortable and confident speaking English, where were you? Who were you with? What were you doing?
One time that comes to mind is when I was at a coffee shop just chatting with a friend. We were both learning English and we were just talking about our week. It felt really easy. The words just flowed.
I love that example. It sounds like a super supportive and non-judgmental environment, which is so important. When you feel safe, you're more willing to experiment, to make mistakes, and to learn from them.
It's true. I didn't feel self-conscious at all.
Right. And when you're constantly practicing in a place that's stressful or chaotic,
Yeah.
it's going to be way harder to feel good about yourself and to make progress.
That's like set yourself up for success.
Exactly.
Create that space that feels good.
Yeah. So if you're finding that you're getting really anxious when you're speaking English,
Mhm.
try switching things up. Maybe move to a quieter room, put on some music, light a candle.
Anything that makes you feel relaxed.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of visual reminders. Like, if you have a favorite quote about language learning or a picture of yourself speaking English confidently, keep those things around you to boost your mood.
I like that. So we're back to goals again.
We are.
We've talked about setting them,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also important to track our progress. Otherwise, it's easy to feel like we're not getting anywhere.
Totally. It's all about celebrating those small wins. So how can we track that progress in a way that feels motivating?
Okay, tell me. I'm ready.
One simple but powerful tool is a language learning journal.
So this is different from the confidence journal.
Yes. So in your language learning journal, you could write down things like how many new words you learned this week, how many minutes you spent practicing speaking, how many conversations you had.
So you're actually keeping track of the
Ish,
numbers.
right. It's a way to see how far you've come, even on those days when you feel discouraged.
Data doesn't lie.
Exactly. It can really boost your motivation.
Okay, so what about when you feel like you've hit a plateau? Like
Oh.
you're just not improving anymore?
Plateaus are so normal.
Yeah.
Everyone goes through them. One thing that can help is to get feedback from other people.
Like a teacher, a tutor, a language partner.
Anyone who can give you an outside perspective, because sometimes we're just too close to our own learning to see what we need to work on.
Yeah, it's good to get a fresh pair of eyes on things. I know that I've definitely gotten stuck on certain things before, and it's so helpful to have someone else explain it in a different way.
Right. And don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. Everyone was a beginner once.
Yeah, that's good to remember.
And speaking of being a beginner,
Yeah.
one of the most important things you can do to build confidence is to simply practice, practice, practice. The more you use the language, the more comfortable you'll become.
Right. But it can be tough to find opportunities to practice, especially if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
I know. But there are still lots of ways to do it. One is to find a language exchange partner online.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. You can find someone who's learning your language and you can help each other.
Exactly. You both get to practice. It's a win-win.
And it's a great way to make new friends too.
Totally. And even if you can't find a partner, you can still practice on your own. Talk to yourself, read out loud, sing along to songs.
Yeah, just get those words out of your mouth.
Exactly. Make English a part of your daily life. The more you do it, the easier it will become. And as you see yourself doing those things successfully,
Yeah.
that's what builds the confidence.
I love this conversation. I'm feeling so much more motivated and confident already. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Just remember that confidence is a journey, not a destination. You're going to have good days and bad days. But the important thing is to be patient with yourself, celebrate your progress, and never give up on your goals.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
And to everyone listening, remember, you are capable of amazing things. Believe in yourself, embrace those challenges, and keep learning and growing.
You got this.
And that's a wrap on our deep dives into confidence. We'll be back soon with more tips and strategies to help you on your English learning journey. Until then, keep practicing, keep believing in yourself, and keep shining.